Mothra vs. Godzilla, directed by Ishiro Honda, was released on April 29, 1964. This film is considered to be an all-time classic of the series. It's beloved by the fans, and it is one of the most well-known films in the Godzilla series. I didn't watch it as much as a kid as I did the later Showa films, Heisei films, and Millennium Era films. But I did have this copy as a kid. This is the SMV version of the movie, released by Sony in the early 2000s, and for some people, this will be a huge kick of nostalgia. Before rewatching this movie for this project, I remember the movie being just okay. Not the greatest movie ever made, but definitely not the worst one. And then I rewatched it. I really slept on this movie as a kid. This film is genuinely great. A reporter and a photographer are covering the damages to a land reclamation site after a large typhoon. This huge storm also washed up a large egg on the coast. The locals sell the egg to a business entrepreneur named Kumiyama of Happy Enterprises, and he intends to turn it into a tourist attraction. The reporters Sakai and Nakanishi, as well as Professor Moira, are upset by this and believe that it should be studied for scientific value. The twin fairies of Mothra, called the Shobijin, show up and try to convince Kumiyama and his superior Torahata to return the egg, but they are unmoving and attempt to kidnap them. The Shobijin meet the trio, and together they try to convince Happy Enterprises to give up the egg, only to fail again, which causes the Shobijin to now leave, having lost their trust in humanity. The reporters head back to the land reclamation site, which has sudden surges of radiation, only to reveal that Godzilla is hiding underneath the dirt of the reclamation site. Godzilla goes on a rampage across Japan, and the trio goes to Infant Island to convince the natives and the Shobijin to have Mothra help save Japan from Godzilla. The island is a desolate wasteland due to several atomic bomb tests nearby, causing almost everything to die. At first, the natives are resistant due to their mistrust of humanity because of the bomb tests. Mothra is the one to choose to fight Godzilla, but will die soon due to age. Back in Japan, Kumiyama and Torahata start infighting, which leads to Torahata shooting Kumiyama before Torahata gets killed when Godzilla destroys the building he's in. Mothra and Godzilla begin to fight, and Mothra is able to pull Godzilla away from the egg before dying from the battle. Godzilla is on a rampage again. The military is unable to stop him, and is about to head towards an island with several school children on board when the egg hatches, revealing two Mothra larvae inside that proceed to attack and trap Godzilla, sending him into the sea. The Shobijin leave with a new larva and a new sense of trust in humanity. This is my first Ishiro Honda movie I've covered on this show, and it's a really good start. This movie cleverly weaves in the comedy with the drama, as well as a Godzilla film, all wrapped into this one film. One thing about Godzilla films that I think a lot of people who are not in the Godzilla community don't really understand about these movies is that there's more to it than just a big monster destroying the city. Obviously, there is a lot of fun there watching those scenes, but those movies have something going on behind the scenes for the most part. The original film had the ramifications of nuclear testing. You got all monsters attack with the consequences of bullying and the lifestyle of Japanese youth in the late 60s, early 70s. Or you get stuff like Shin Godzilla, where it's mostly just calling out the Japanese government for their slow bureaucracy through the whole film. Mothra vs. Godzilla is a comedic take on capitalism and journalism trying to call out unethical business practices, only to be silenced by the bigger megaphone of Happy Enterprises. Torahata is killed by Godzilla because he stayed for a few extra moments to grab his money and run away. There's also the theme of a loss of trust in humanity, exemplified by the Infant Island natives and their apprehension to aid Japan because of what the world has done to them. These are rather heavy themes, but the movie expertly mixes these in with comedic moments to keep the mood lighter. This movie features the second appearance of Yumi and Emi Ito, the Peanuts, as the Shobijin, Mothra's fairies. They sing some new songs in the film. One of them is just the original Mothra song, and it's a good rendition of the song. It's an all-time classic in the fandom. Everyone knows that song at this point. It's even shown up in stuff like Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019. The second song is Mahara Mothra. Mahara Mothra is pretty good. It's made a couple appearances since, most notably in Godzilla vs. Mothra in 1992. It's okay. And then you get to Sacred Spring, which is only sung in one scene in the film, and it's a very brief sequence at that. And it's definitely my favorite song in the film of the three. It is really well done. It's super atmospheric in a weird way. I just like it. It's just my favorite one. It's hard to articulate why. The monsters in this film are classic. This is the first of two appearances for the 1964 Godzilla suit, which is referred to by fans as the Mosugoji. This design has a much shorter snout than the previous design, large eyebrows, and is much thinner but retains similar dorsal plates. Mothra in this film is portrayed by a puppet, and it looks pretty great, if not a bit ragged at times. In my honest opinion, Mothra is one of those monsters that has really been improved due to the later advancements in miniature filmmaking. This Mothra, however, is genuinely awesome looking. It's very simple in its design, but it has a lot of good movement to it, and it feels like a living creature. The larvae puppets are very similar in my opinion. They are really nice looking though, but honestly, I think the best looking larvae is the one from the original Mothra. The movie's effects work was done by Eiji Tsuburaya, who is at the top of his game at this point. One thing about Eiji Tsuburaya in this film and in a lot of his other work is that he didn't always strive for realism. He mostly serviced what was good for the story, and sometimes what was more memorable. A prime example of Eiji Tsuburaya kind of making what's good for the story and what's memorable to the audience is in the 1965 film Frankenstein vs. Baragon. In that film, there's a scene where the monster Baragon attacks a farm and is supposed to eat a horse. And the original plan, as far as I understand, was to use compositing work to basically put a real horse in the miniature stable. But that didn't look right, and it just kind of was weird, and Eiji Tsuburaya just said, let's just use the rubber horse we're going to use when Baragon eats it, and it just have it flop around the little stable. And it's in the film, and it's genuinely way more memorable, in my opinion, seeing this goofy-looking horse just flopping around the stable. When the movie came out in the United States, they changed the title from Mothra vs. Godzilla to Godzilla vs. The Thing. Also for the US release, there is an exclusive sequence only in the US cut. Now most Godzilla movies, the US sequences are just someone in a meeting room talking for 20 minutes and it's kind of boring. But this movie, it's a whole new scene shot by the Japanese unit, where the US Army shows up and starts using their new Frontier missile system on Godzilla. Overall, I'd recommend this film highly, and go check it out if you haven't already. It is definitely worth your time. I did not cover everything that is in this film's plot, just so you can watch more and learn more about the film's story. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.